Welcome back to the Fat Loss Game podcast. Today, I am so excited to announce our special guest. She's a registered dietitian. We've been following each other since 2017, which is crazy. We both did a bikini competition, and that's how our online social media friendship first started. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Kale. Tell us, something about you that we may not know.
Oh, that's good. Well, first off, thank you for having me. It is so fun to be here and it's so fun to finally get to meet you as opposed to just like talking through messages. Um, I am Kale, Kaleigh Kellner. Everyone calls me Kale, which is fitting because I'm a registered dietitian. My husband and I live in San Diego with our kitty, whose name is Kat. And we
I love
are
that.
I know. She's gone through a couple of names. We've tried to find the right fit for her, and we've landed on Cat because that's just what we call her anyway. Um, and fun fact that I haven't even announced on social media yet, but I guess I could drop it here, is that we are opening 3 gyms. So we're starting our first one this year, and we'll open consecutively every year after this. So that's exciting.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
Holy
It's
crap.
pretty crazy. I know. We're really excited. It's going to be a wild journey, but something that we both wanted to do for a really long time, and opportunity fell in our laps to join a franchise. So we're like, let's do it.
That is so exciting. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you so
Oh my
much.
God.
Yeah,
Holy
we're
cow.
hyped.
Okay. I love that. I so want to go into that, but I know that's not like the our topic of today. So we'll have to say that for another podcast. But I want to take our listeners and our viewers back to the very beginning of your fitness journey. So, I mean, you've competed, you're a registered dietitian, you're well versed in the fitness industry. So, I'm curious, when did you like your very first, I guess we could say, fitness journey when you started getting into weightlifting or just working out and healthy eating? When was that for you?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it feels like I had little like glimpses of it. And I was talking to somebody and they were saying, like, God will leave you breadcrumbs, and then, like, you get to the bigger picture, it's whether or not you pick them up, and I feel like I had these little breadcrumbs all my life, and then I just got into fitness, and it just made sense. But I was an athlete growing up. I played volleyball, soccer, tried my hand at basketball and track, not as good at those. So I was an active kid, and then my senior year of high school, my dad had a massive heart attack, so I got called down. It was the first day of my senior year, got called down to the office. They said, "You're leaving." And I was like, "Why?" And they wouldn't tell me. So my mom came to pick me up and she'd been crying and they said, "Your dad's had this heart attack. You need to go say your goodbyes." They didn't think he was going to make it. Thankfully he did. But that was kind of the catalyst into like taking a deeper look into my health routine. I was waking up in the morning and eating Casey's donuts for breakfast. I would have 2 donuts and a chocolate Yoo-hoo, and then for lunch, I would have the school lunch. I would leave and get a footlong from Subway and then eat whatever mom had fried up for dinner, which was usually like, I don't know, fried pork chops or spaghetti or something crazy, delicious. I mean, she's from Kentucky, so the woman can cook, but not the heart healthiest diet. And then I would have a little Debbie's stash, like the little Debbie's cakes in my bedroom, and I would eat like 3 or 4 of those for dessert. Thankfully, I was a kid and had a good metabolism and was playing sports, so it hadn't caught up with me yet, but it caught up with my dad, and so he had kind of reaped the repercussions of this. So that kind of started the, like, deeper introspective look into how am I treating my body, and is this going to play out well for me in the future? And at that point, I was heading into my freshman year of college. I joined a CrossFit gym because I wasn't playing sports anymore and I didn't really know how to do like organized workouts. And that kind of catapulted into even more where I started to love lifting heavy. And I remember not being able to even do a push up when I started there. And I was so discouraged. And I was like, I'm going to. I'm going to do this and I'm going to like be good at it. And so I did.
Wow, I love that. So I'm curious then, so when you started just looking at your eating habits after your dad had a heart attack,
Mhm.
did you have a method for like eating healthy, or was it just, okay, I'm just going to slowly make better choices and cut out the fried stuff?
At that point I was heading into college and the cafeteria was there, right? So like you could just eat pizza and pasta and burgers and whatever you wanted. And I was just trying to, like, make decent choices from what I kinda just knew from general health class or whatever, and then there was a trainer at the CrossFit gym, and I'll never forget this. He's like, "I want you," because I had said, "I wanna lose some weight. I wanna look like I work out." And he's like, "Well, I want you to write down what you eat for the next couple days and bring it back to me," which red flag number 1, like, I don't think he has any nutrition background. He was just a fit guy and just saying, "Bring this to me so I can, like, tell you what's wrong with it." Um, but I did so, and I had been eating, like, a turkey burger for lunch with a bag of pretzels, which is fine, especially as an active 19-year-old. I would have a yogurt for breakfast with a banana, and then dinner would be, like, some kind of grilled chicken with, like, rice or whatever, and I took it into him, he's like, "Ah, pretzels are the worst thing you can eat." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you really shouldn't be eating those. If you wanna lose weight, you gotta get rid of the pretzels." Like, that was his thing, like, "Do not eat pretzels." So then, this, like, spiraled me, and I'm like, "Okay, I can't eat pretzels. I shouldn't eat bananas because they're carbs," and I was freaking out, and that's kinda when I started to get this rocky relationship with food a little bit, and when I started bodybuilding, that just blossomed into even more of a can of worms.
When did you start prepping for your bodybuilding show after that?
So that was in like 2015 that I met with him. And then I actually transferred schools to go to a school in Missouri. And that's when I started getting interested in bodybuilding. So that was like 2016 into 2017. So about a year later.
Okay. So what happened during your bodybuilding prep that you feel like fueled your rocky relationship with food?
So I had 3 different coaches. The first one, she was great, but she was in England or Australia. She was, like, somewhere not here, so the time difference, I would send her a message and not hear back for, like, 2 days, and it was just kinda tough, and also she wasn't really familiar with the NPC posing, so she was trying to have me pose for, like, a different division, so I had to switch. I switched to this other decently well-known coach, and that's where it all started, is he had me on. I was 24 weeks out, and he put me on, like, 12 grams of fat a day. I was eating, it was a meal plan, so I was eating a structured, like, I was having tuna steaks for breakfast with pistachios and, like, curry or something, and so it was just like not what I'm used to eating for breakfast. Um, and I ended up losing my period, but I was following it and I was losing the weight, and then people started to notice that I was losing the weight and saying, "Wow, you look really good. What are you doing?" And that just fueled that fire, so I just leaned in even more. But then I realized, like, okay, something's not right. The way he's coaching me, my body's not responding well. So I switched to a local guy, and he was like, "We need to get you a refeed. I want you to go get a big cheeseburger and fries and whatever you want. And we need you to take a couple days off the gym." But even still at that point, it was still just so low calorie because I was so close to my show that it was just really toxic.
Do you remember how low calorie you got?
By the end of my prep, I was at 800 calories a day.
Did you stick to that consistently?
I did, yeah, I was really on it, like, I would get 1 free meal a week, so I would do my 800 calories a day, which was, like, mostly protein, very little fat, very little carb. I had basically lost my cycle for the next 2 years after competing, but I would have this free meal, and so this probably put me at more of an average of, like, I don't know, 1,400 because I would just go nuts. On, like, Saturdays, I would always have my free meal on Saturday, and he said, "You get an hour," is his rules. "You get 1 hour to eat whatever you want,
You can do a
and
lot of damage in an hour.
you can do a lot of damage in an hour." So I would go, like, but I also worked at a salon at the time, and we would have weddings on Saturday, so we'd bring in Panera for the weddings, and I would hide in the closet and just chow these bagels that were there. Like, I would just go nuts, and, like, the people were like, "You gotta save some for the bridal party." I'm like, "I know, I'm, like, out of control." It was really bad. And, then I would go get, like, 3 or 4 sushi rolls or, like, a huge burger from Buffalo Wild Wings with cheese curds, and then I would eat a pint of ice cream, and I would just be sick, like, I was miserable. And then the next day, back to my 800 calories.
Dude, I had no idea that your range was that like, just that low calorie and then that much of a binge day, and I say that in the sense of, like, I that's exactly where I was in so many points in my life. Sometimes I feel like I went so crazy, I'm like, "Oh, no one would understand."
Yeah.
But to hear that is like, wow, you totally understand what I also went through with binge eating, which is crazy. So,
Yeah.
okay, so you had your 800 calories and then you did like with your cheat meals on Saturdays. After your show, was it basically just a free for all or did your coach try to reverse diet you?
Yeah, it was a free for all. He had offered to reverse diet me, but at that point I was in college and I was making, I think I don't know, maybe $10 an hour or something. And his it's funny to look back because his coaching was $150, but I was like, oh, I'm strapped, like in retrospect, I could have absolutely afforded it, but I think I was at a point where I did not want the accountability. I didn't want to be held to doing a reverse diet. I just wanted to get back to normal. So yeah, I went nuts and I gained about 30 pounds in the course of a month. And a lot of that obviously was like me holding on to water, but to see the scale go from so low on show day to, above my normal set point, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I was just swollen. My face was puffy. I was eating all the things all the time and just felt so out of control. It was nuts.
That is nuts. So, what was your recovery process like? Like, how long do you feel like it took you, and what did you do until you got to a point where you felt, at the very least, just normal, like not always thinking about food?
I remember the exact moment that I feel like I stepped into intuitive eating. I had really wanted a grilled cheese and tomato soup. This was probably, I don't know, 6 months after my show. And I was just tired of feeling, like, controlled by food because I would do this thing where I would track and, like, try to reverse diet myself, and then I would go over and feel discouraged, and I would delete the app and then re-download it, and I had a friend, we were both in the dietetics program, she's like, "You need to delete that, and if you need support, like, I'm here for you," which I really appreciated. And she's like, "I've never tracked before, and I can't imagine how hard that is, but you gotta get rid of that app." So after talking with her, I finally was like, okay, I'm going to delete it. And then I sat and I thought, what do I actually want to eat right now? And I was like, I would kill for a grilled cheese and tomato soup. And I was like, I remember having this inner monologue and I said, and I'm an adult and I can have one. And so I went to the kitchen, I made it and I ate it and the world didn't implode and I didn't die. And I was like, okay, this is fine. I can do this, and then just started slowly implementing more of that balance and freedom with what I chose to eat because I wanted it or what I needed as opposed to feeling out of control and just restricting everything.
That is amazing. Did you so at that point when you started finding your footing with your relationship with food, intuitive eating, did you still struggle with your body image?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I would say, I still even sometimes struggle with body image, not as much as I used to. And to be honest with you, I think that's an unfortunate like evil of the fitness industry, and I think everybody in this field struggles with that at least to a small degree. um but I would, it was bad back then. I was just telling Cal I would spend hours on plastic surgery websites looking at like how much does a nose job cost, how much does a boob job cost, what if I wanted to get liposuction, what about a BBLs weren't really a thing at the time, but like fat transfers, I think, had just come onto the scene. I'm like, "What? Could I save up? Could I put this on a credit card?" And I would just pick myself apart and just cry at night. Like, it was awful. It was really bad. So, I'm really glad to be out of that. But, bodybuilding, when you go from such a lean physique where everybody's saying, "Wow, you look so good. You look amazing. How'd you do this?" to looking healthy and maybe a little inflamed, but just normal, and then you don't get that, my ego was, like, really shot after that.
Oh my god, I so relate. I so relate to every part of it. So going through that period where like body image was such a struggle, what what did you do to get to the point now where and I would agree where most of us in the fitness industry, we feel like it's our business card. Our body is
Mhm.
our business card, and so that puts a level of pressure and stress and importance. But, assuming you're at a good place with your body image right now, how did you go from where you were just crying at night, looking at plastic surgery websites to where you are now, do you think that there was anything you could have done to sped up the process, or do you think that it was just a natural progression and you had to just kind of let it go the way it was?
That's a really good question. I don't hmm. I want to say there are things that I could have done to speed up the process because being where I am now and seeing my clients go through it, I know that I give them tangible steps, like, hey, you're doing a lot of comparison on social media. Let's take a step back from that. Like let's do a social media detox instead of a liver detox because that you don't need that, but you could use this social media detox. So being able to unfollow the accounts that I followed. I followed so many bikini competitors for so long, even though I was out of that world and still comparing myself to them. I think I was like, well, I don't think I was. I know I was drinking a lot to kinda cope with those feelings and just other external factors of my life at the time. So I think if I had stopped drinking, that would have helped a lot sooner. Um, but I do think there's part of me that had to go through that and kinda hit that rock bottom to be able to climb my way out.
I totally feel that. And was there anything that you specifically did or didn't do that helped you?
I didn't what I think would have helped is if I would have hired a professional, if I would have hired a coach to kinda help give me that accountability because I was navigating it by myself and trying to figure out, like, how do I stop binge eating? How do I stop comparing myself? How do I stop picking my body apart? Um, One thing I really did do that I wish I hadn't do was lean into external validation through social media. So I would post a lot of like, the butt selfies and things, which totally fine. But I was getting this like high off of these likes and these comments and these people sliding into my DMs and saying like, wow, you look great. And I think that was just really fueling that fire because then when I would post a picture of me normal and like not pose, I wouldn't get that. And I'd be like, oh, like people don't like that. And I was really basing that value and the value of my uh, coaching on how many likes I was getting. So I think had I stopped doing that sooner, I would have felt so much better earlier on.
So, most of your clients, do they come to you for weight loss?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so how like do you ever struggle, because I feel like that's something I struggle with, where it's like you want them to have healthy and positive body image, but obviously they're also trying to lose weight and it's this weird in between. Do you ever struggle with that? And if you do or if you don't, how do you navigate that with your clients?
Yeah, I love this question. So I'm currently working with a business coach. Her name is Kendall Strample. She's amazing. And she talks a lot about the chocolate covered kale. And she says people want weight loss. So that's the chocolate, right? Like they're coming in and they're saying like I want weight loss, help me lose weight. But what they really need is to increase their calorie intake and reverse diet and repair their metabolism and get to a place where they can eat more while maintaining a leaner physique. So I and this maybe sounds weird, like I bring them in for weight loss, but I deliver something different to them, which they don't know that they need until they're in. And they're like, oh, I needed to repair my relationship with food and my body and not work out 7 times a week, maybe work out 4 or 5 and eat more protein, eat more balanced, stop drinking. Like there's so many things that are going to help you lose the weight, but it's not going to look the way that you think that it will.
Mm, I totally get that. Do you have clients push back of like, no, I want to go harder, like I don't want to reverse diet, because I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, I've had a few, and I think it's just really like having so many touch points and really just delivering to them like, "I know this is what you want and I hear you, and we can do that, but until we can do that, we have to like fill the cracks of your foundation first so we can build a house on it, right? If we start building a house on this cracked foundation, it's going to crumble. You're going to end up back in the spot again, and we don't want that, right? This is a long-term journey. This isn't a 6-week quick fix. So I think just education is the biggest part, and then if they're really set on it, they're like, I need to lose weight for this event in 6 weeks. It's either a matter of like saying, "Hey, I'm just not the coach for you, and I'll let you, like we can break up as client and coach and you can go find someone that will help you with that, or we can do it with you understanding that this could potentially wreck your metabolism. And if you're okay with that, then that's fine, and I'll help you do it. But usually they're like, "Oh shit, no, I don't want to do that," you know? So
Uh,
just giving them that option and the autonomy to decide, usually they're like, "Okay, I'll try it your way," you know?
100%. And I think that communication is key of explaining, like, I think when you don't push back, you're like, okay, I will help you, but here are the consequences of that. That really puts it on them of like, okay, so she's not telling me I can't do it. Cause I feel like when you tell people they can't, they will just want to do it more. You know, you're not telling
Mhm.
people you can't do it, but it's like, "Hey, do you really want these consequences that come with it?" And I think that makes them really, you know, second guess their decision. Um,
Right.
you recently were prepping for a bikini competition,
Mhm.
right? When
Yeah.
did you start your prep?
I started it in August of 2023, so end of August.
And then when did you stop?
I stopped in January, so I made it like about 6 months in, and then
That's a
I
long time.
yeah, it
What
was.
what was your prep like? Because I know you had some complications along the way. So what like how
Mhm.
did it go in the beginning? And then at what point did you feel like you need to stop?
Yeah, so Cal and I decided we because he's a certified strength and conditioning specialist. We're a lot like you and D, so we have like, like kind of complementary like things that we both do, and it just plays really nicely into our business. But he was like, let's do it in house because I think if we can do this and get you looking good and you can place, like that's great marketing, right? Like you said, our bodies are our business cards. So we're like, okay, great. I'll do the nutrition. You write my training. And I think in retrospect, that was tough because it's just so close and it's hard to be objective. So I was starting to panic because I'm like, I'm not where I need to be because I had the diet goggles on. So I was like, I'm not lean enough. We're like 16 weeks out and I should be leaner by now. Um, and so I again, like, it's so weird to be in your own head, and for a client, I would know exactly what to do. When it's myself, I've just, like, freaked out, and I'm like, "Let's cut my calories down." So I started myself at, like, 2,300, and I was pretty consistently losing at that, and then I slashed it down to, like, 1,500, which why did I do that, It's like, I would never do that for a client ever. Why did I do that for myself? I don't know. But my body started fighting me and just wasn't budging, and then I started to get, like, several menstrual cycles a month as opposed to losing. I was getting more, which I think is typically a sign that something is happening. And I think had I continued, I would have lost my cycle. Um, and then I was just really starting to become obsessed with food again. And I was like, this is not a road that I want to go down. So I had said prior to starting it, I told Cal if I get obsessed with food or I lose my period, I'll stop. And I wanted to honor that promise. So I was like, yep, I'm done.
Did you do macros with yourself?
hmm Yeah, I did. I usually do well, typically I would if I were just gonna start tracking today, I would do like a nice 40% carb, 30 protein, 30 fat split. That's kind of like my happy place. But for this, I was doing more so like 40% carb, 30 fat, 30 protein. So it's just also a little tough to get that much protein in every single day. But you kill your protein. I don't know how you do it. You're the queen of protein.
That's because it's I mean, it's what I crave, and honestly,
Mhm.
I just have such a big appetite that if I don't prioritize protein,
Yeah,
I just wanna keep eating. So
sure.
it's like automatic for me now. But so since you did macros, what is your process with macros? Do you like have a meal plan template that you like to stick to because you know the meals you like, or does it totally change every day? How do you do macros yourself?
It pretty much changes every day. I get really bored with things, and actually right now, I just got diagnosed last night actually with Crohn's disease. I had a colonoscopy yesterday, which was terrible. I have some funny oh my gosh, it was hilarious. I was just so out of it last night. But anyway, um, so Crohn's disease really is gonna limit the way that I can eat. And, going from a girly who's like focused on fiber, focused on these proteins, focused on all this, fruits and vegetables, right? Like I can't really have that anymore. So fruits and vegetables, at least raw, are a big trigger for me. High fiber, like the delicious Mission carb balanced tortillas that have like 18 grams of fiber in them. Can't do those anymore. All my meat is going to have to be ground for a while, like a lot of really soft foods. So lately, my appetite's been really low and my just desire to eat has been really off. But typically, I would change up what I eat every day just because I like variety and I like to cook too. So if I have an excuse to make a new recipe, I'll do it any day of the week.
Love that. So when did you start getting symptoms for your Crohn's?
About 6 weeks ago, I started to have the symptoms, and it was weird because my whole life I just have always said, like, I have a bad tummy. I have an anxious tummy. When I would go to preschool when I was like 5 or 6, I would puke every single day because I would get so nervous. I've been to the emergency room multiple times because I thought I for sure was having appendicitis, but they're like, "No, you just have gas." And I'm like, "That is so embarrassing." Like I'm so embarrassed to be here right now. But it's that painful that you really think something is wrong. Um, and then this last time, it's the worst like flare I've ever had, and that's the thing with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. They're both under this umbrella of IBD. They're both disease states that can go into remission. So for a lot of my life, it's been in remission and it'll flare up a little bit, but this is the worst it's been. So I finally went to the doctor and was like, something is wrong. And I think now living in California, we have such a better like healthcare team that actually looks deeper as opposed to, like small town Illinois and Missouri. I just don't know that they had the resources or like the desire to dive any deeper. So I finally had a healthcare team that listened and they're like, yeah, something's wrong. Let's dive into this. And now that I have answers, it's kind of scary, but also like really relieving to know that now we can take steps to like solve the problem.
I was just gonna ask, I mean, you literally got this diagnosis last night. I can only imagine how you're feeling. But I could see it being relieving in the sense of, okay, like I
Mhm.
have a set answer of why this is happening.
Right.
But like, what was your initial reaction?
Yeah, going into it, I really was hoping because the doctor had said, "You've got IBD. Now we just have to know, is it ulcerative colitis or is it Crohn's?" Ulcerative colitis is more localized to your colon and your large intestine, so a little bit closer to like the end of your GI tract, whereas Crohn's disease can be anywhere from the mouth to the rectum. So you have these patches of inflammation all throughout your GI tract. So I was like, man, please be Crohn's. I mean, please be ulcerative colitis because it's a little bit easier to treat with like a local medication, like suppositories and things like that. Whereas Crohn's often can lead to like immunosuppressant therapies, which is something I really do not want to be on. And sometimes they have to do like bowel resections and you have to have an ostomy bag. And it's just like, it's a lot. So I'm like, oh God, please be ulcerative colitis. So when I first heard it, I was like, oh, well, to be honest with you, I was so doped up on the sedation that I was like, what? What's happening? So then this morning at like 1 a.m., I woke up and I was in a panic and I was like researching and just Googling all the things, which is never a good idea. Like if you're listening to this and you get diagnosed, don't Google. Like stay off of Google. It's so bad. So I was panicked a little bit, but then I was like, I've lived with this my whole life. It doesn't change that, right? Like I know what things to do when I don't feel good. So I'm just gonna keep doing those things just because I have a diagnosis now doesn't make it worse or scarier. It's just a name for what I was experiencing. And now I have extra help and support to feel better when I need it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess you said you've had an anxious tummy for
Mhm.
most of your life. So I know you said one of the things was immunosuppressant therapy, which you definitely don't want to do. What are the other therapies or steps that you're going to take to mitigate your Crohn's? Is it, I'm assuming it's not curable.
Right. It's chronic illness with no cure at this point. But their therapies have become a lot more successful. So previously, the rate of patients needing surgery was like 50 to 75%. Now it's down to 30%. And with me being so young, because the thing that causes issues is the inflammation in your intestines causes strictures. So you develop malabsorption of nutrients, so you're malnourished and you're losing weight unintentionally. You can't keep things down, and you also can't pass your bowel movements. Which sorry for everybody that doesn't like talking about I always say dietitians love talking shit. So sorry to anyone that doesn't. But we want to be able to pass stool like normal. So if we have a stricture, we can't do that. So because they didn't find any strictures or anything weird as of now, I caught it early enough. I think I can take more of like a nutrition first approach, at least in the beginning. What we want to prevent is progression of the disease. So I'm first and foremost going to change a lot of my diet to be lower fiber. Any kind of vegetables that I consume will be cooked really well. Oftentimes, if I have a flare up, I'll do like a pureed sort of diet, like pureed soups or, jams and jellies as opposed to like whole fruits. The biggest thing that's so funny is like, I keep joking with Cal. I'm like, I'm going to be the white bread RD because like whole wheat bread, I can't do it anymore, which is so against everything I know. I'm like, I'm going back to bunny bread, the good stuff that I used to eat when I was little. So, nutrition first, I'll make those changes, really focus on soluble fiber as opposed to insoluble. And then the first kind of line of defense is usually prednisone, so a corticosteroid, which I'm open to that if I need it, just to get me feeling better and then wean off of it to be able to just like try to stay in remission on my own. But at this point, the less medicine I have to take, the better. But I know I don't want to like dismiss medication because I think medication is amazing, and I'm so grateful that we have a healthcare system that, we can get the help. But as a dietitian, if I can take a nutrition first approach, that's the way I want to go.
I totally get it. So do you have pain and flare-ups every day?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable. A lot of like cramping. I'll have like fevers for no reason. I'm not sick. It's just my body's inflamed and like fighting off it. It basically it's an autoimmune disease where your body just like kind of recognizes your intestines as a foreign thing and a bad thing. So it starts attacking your intestines, which is like, why? Why are you doing that? That's so random. But bodies don't make sense sometimes. So yeah, I've got fevers, I've got stomach aches. Um, I have blood where there should not be blood. I have like night sweats. I'm no appetite. I am definitely losing weight pretty quickly, and that's not ideal. So it's
Is
been a
it
crazy 6 weeks.
Do you get those symptoms every time you eat or just whenever?
Sometimes it's just whenever, but if I eat the things I know I can digest well, I don't have as much of a flare up. So, for me, my biggest triggers are like blackberries are a big one for me. Black beans are a big one. Cabbage, nuts and seeds, um, any kind of bean or legume. What else? Like straight cream. I can do cheese and I can do like yogurt, but I can't do cream or ice cream because that will really flare me up. So I kind of know my triggers at this point, but sometimes something will get snuck in and it'll be like, oh, I didn't know this was in here. And then, I have a flare up and have to just kind of wait till it feels better.
Do you have to moderate your choices when you go out to eat?
Yeah, honestly, these last 6 weeks, I've been kinda scared to go out to eat, so we've been eating out a lot less, which is fine because again, I like to cook, so I don't really mind that too much, but when we go to visit family, we go out to eat a lot. So when we went to Arizona a couple weeks ago, it's like, I don't know what to eat. Like, I was just getting toast a lot. I'm like, "I'm just gonna eat toast," or, like, shrimp. I can do shrimp, so I'll do that. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Dude, that I mean, honestly, just hearing that makes me grateful that I have a healthy digestive system. Like you don't I feel like we don't realize what we have until it's the most simplest things. It's the most basic things. Literally just your health, just the ability to digest the foods that you like. Like honestly, that just gave me a much needed, I feel like, kick in the butt and perspective. Because I can't even imagine feeling that way every single day. And I know you said this really started over the last 6 weeks. How do you emotionally and mentally cope with it? Are you at this point, does it affect you at all, or do you have to do certain coping strategies just to like get through it?
Yeah, I would say I have my days, where it's like, I've cried my fair share of tears at this point where, it kind of just gets into your head like my body's not functioning right. And then that kind of just like seeps into everything else, like your confidence, like the way you show up. Obviously I'm really bloated a lot. So I feel so frustrated that it's like I work out, so much and I take such good care of my body and it's just not showing. So the vein side of my brain is like, that sucks. And then the business side of my brain is like, well, will anybody trust me if I don't look the part? Again, the body is a business card thing, which is something I really need to get over. Um, just so many little things that I think about, and then just feeling crummy. It's like, I wanna feel good, I just wanna feel energetic and happy and be able to contribute, to our household, and sometimes I get so tired that I'm just like, I can't even, like, do the 10 dishes in the sink because 'cause I'm just like, I can't even function right now. Um, but, those days are fewer and further between, especially now that I have a diagnosis. I think once I get on medication and can kinda get this flare up stopped, I'm gonna be, feeling back to 100%. But to be honest with you, I've kind of looked at it as almost like a blessing in disguise because IBD is a relatively new disease to the healthcare field, and I think a lot of times has been written off as IBS or just like a bad stomach or hormones for women. And so now this gives me an opportunity to help the people who have it, who either maybe don't know they have it or do know and are just terrified. And it's like, what do I even do? And as a dietitian, that gives me a really cool kind of road to take to be able to be like, "Hey, I'm here and I get it. I can empathize with you because I have it," and that's a lot easier to trust someone that's been through the same thing that you're teaching them how to get out of.
I could not agree more. And if I was in your position, that's exactly how I would look at it too. It's funny. So like the binging that you had to experience after your show, I mean, I've experienced that pretty much most of my life. And I always remember thinking, like, why am I going through this? Like,
Mhm.
what? I mean, I love that story when you're just eating all the bagels and they're like, "You have to save some for the," and it's like something takes over you, and it's like
Mhm.
the shame that comes with it. Like, I just remember thinking, "Why am I going through this?" And now I see, like, I'm so thankful because it's like, okay, now I can help people who have also gone through the
Mhm.
same thing,
Yeah.
and really empathize, and so I love that you take that perspective. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is like, you have it, you're here, what are we gonna do with it? You might as well turn to something positive, but I still, like, I I don't I feel for you. Like, I seriously can only imagine what that's like, and, like, that just to me, that just speaks volumes to your strength as a person of being able to go through that and still show up as much as you can. Like, weirdly enough, I feel very inspired right now of just
I'm
like,
glad.
yeah, just like I have a healthy body, and I
Yeah.
feel like I need to take care of that. I need to take advantage of that. So if anything, just thank you for sharing your story. My God.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm glad that's kind of the goal is like I want people to have that appreciation for their body. And you do such a good job of showing your clients like this is where I was. And that's as coaches, I think what you can do so well, and you do an amazing job of this of saying, I was you, I was in your shoes, and you're speaking to them where they are. Like you're binging right now, you're frustrated, you don't know why this is happening, but I'm showing you the light and the roadmap. I did it. You can do it. I'm on the other side of it and I feel great. I look great. I'm eating more than ever and I don't have those urges to binge anymore. You can do it, because
Mm.
people I think see coaches and they're like, "Well, you don't understand. You've never been where I'm at or like you just look good and it's just easy for you." Right? And it's like, "No, I've been there. I've lived it and I can help you live this way too." So, um, you know, I think you've done an amazing job of taking your story and turning it into gold and helping other people
Thank
feel their
you.
best. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. I definitely know people look at I know people look at me and they're like, you have never struggled with food a day in your life. And I get that all the time at the gym. Like, when they follow me on Instagram, they're like, "I would have never guessed you ever struggled with food." I'm like, "Trust me, I know." I was like, I've had to develop a million and one strategies to find this place with food and reach my fitness goals, and I'm sure as heck not saying it's easy. It takes a level of commitment and discipline, and, I mean, too, you've gone through it as well. But before we end, I wanna ask you one last question of anyone right now who is trying to lose weight, but does struggle with their relationship with food, which honestly I think is 99% of women.
Mhm.
If you could give them just one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think that's to live in the gray. We look at our world as black and white, right? When you have a job, a lot of my clients are nurses or like work in engineering, and their job is very black and white. If you give someone too much medicine, they could get hurt. If you put in the wrong formula or whatever engineers do, like your machine's not going to work. I have no idea what engineers do, to be honest with you. But, it's very like straightforward, ones and zeros, black and white. Nutrition is not that. Nutrition is not perfection. Nutrition is consistency and being consistently decent at what you're doing. And you're going to get where you want to be. Obviously, if you want to get from A to B faster, being close to perfection as you want to be or as you can be is going to help you get there more quickly, but to just live a happy, healthy life and feel good in your body, you really don't have to be perfect with it. And you can truly enjoy the foods that you love while losing weight and having that body of your dreams. I mean, I think you're a perfect example of that. You're always eating some good food and you're just absolutely shredded. So, it's possible. It's just figuring out and letting go of those old ideas that you have, right? Like, man, I'm like lumping this all into one because I have so many things I could say for this, but I think we get so caught up on the little things. And it's like people are like, oh, I don't want to eat seed oils. And I heard that this is bad and maybe I should try Ozempic. And we're looking at these little things as opposed to just like zooming out, looking at the bigger picture and letting go of all of those crazy diets you've done in the past. Because if they worked, you wouldn't be doing it again, right? Like if your Weight Watchers diet truly worked, you wouldn't have gained the weight back and had to go back to it. So trust the people who are saying to do this in a way where you can enjoy the things you love, make it sustainable, and just see what happens. Because you might be surprised what's on the other end.
Okay, I have one more question for you. So that
Yeah.
was a lie. Because you brought it up, and I'm so curious, what are your thoughts on Ozempic or any similar drugs?
If you're diabetic, I think it's great because it's a diabetic medication. If you are not diabetic and you just want to lose weight, I don't think it's an ideal route to take because it doesn't teach you anything you need to know about nutrition, right? And the side effects, the reason that you lose weight with those types of drugs is it essentially paralyzes your intestines. And with somebody or as somebody with digestive issues, that is not a fun place to be. You're nauseous and you're having diarrhea and your stomach is cramping and you're not digesting and you're not hungry. So of course you're going to lose weight. But either A, you have to take that forever and feel that way forever to lose the weight. And is weight loss really worth feeling that way? Probably not. Or B, you have to take it for the short term, lose the weight, and then navigate how to maintain your weight loss without having any nutrition education or understanding of your body. So it just really isn't, some people have argued with me on Instagram. They're like, well, it helps people learn their hunger cues. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It stops them from having hunger cues and
Yeah,
then they ignore their hunger cues and never get them again. So it is just, again, if you're diabetic and you need it, great. If not, I would stray far, far, far away from it.
that's good to know. So if anyone's
Yeah.
listening and has been considering Ozempic or semaglutide for, well, actually, I know there's one that's not for diabetes. I think it's Wegovy.
I think Wegovy, semaglutide, and Ozempic are under Wegovy, aren't they? I don't
Oh,
know.
I know there's one that is the same compound, but is not labeled for, it's labeled for weight loss, but it does the same thing, which is interesting.
Right.
So it's I know it's a very controversial topic, but I do read a lot of stories of people after, like, once they're a lot of the times their insurance will no longer cover it,
Mhm.
and then after, just like you said, their hunger comes back, they didn't learn how to manage it. Um, So, I mean, it's yeah, it's a very controversial, interesting
Yeah.
topic. I have not yet formulated an opinion, but it's so good to hear yours. It's something that's I've definitely been interested in looking into and I've just been researching, so it's good
Yeah.
to
I will say that, if you are someone who is experiencing health implications from being, extremely overweight, right? Like your weight has now caused joint pain or I always look at it as the chicken or the egg, right? Like I personally think that weight loss is kind of the egg because the chicken is the poor eating habits, the lack of exercise, the lack of knowledge around nutrition, right? And the egg from that is all of the health implications, diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. But if you're experiencing obesity and that's making it harder for you to manage your hunger cues or exercise, and you're to a point where you're just totally unmotivated and there's no chance that you're going to try to do this on your own, yeah, I think maybe a weight loss drug is potentially a good tool to start with if you're using it in conjunction with working with a dietitian and understanding nutrition in your body. Because then when the time comes and you can get off of it, which not to mention it's expensive. So if you don't have insurance to cover it, it's a very pricey thing to continue doing. But if you come off of it, then you are like, okay, I know I worked with my coach or my dietitian or whoever, and I know these are the foods that I need to eat to provide me with satiety and keep my digestion on track. And so I'm going to keep doing that now that I'm off and maintain this progress. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like it
Yeah,
gives
because
you both sides because obviously not having constant intense hunger makes implementing nutrition education a lot easier. It's much harder when you're having constant cravings, constant hunger, and it's like you can't even think rationally. So I can definitely see the importance of having both work together and knowing, okay, like knowing how to make better choices and implement an actual sustainable lifestyle. So I totally get that. And I
yeah.
just, oh my God, I'm just so happy to be here talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me and being here and being so open and sharing your story. Like I feel like we are the same person. We're like, we are willing when you're talking about bowel movements, I'm like, oh yeah, we're willing to talk about anything. And I love
Mhm,
that because I think it's so important for people to hear the reality of what us human beings go through,
mhm.
even when we are fitness professionals, nutrition professionals, we are humans, we have emotions, and that factors into everything else. So I just hearing your story has just been so inspirational. Is there any last thing that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with before we go?
I think just, keep listening to this podcast because you're going to get so much good information. And you are just a beacon of light in the fitness industry and so real. So I appreciate you having me on. I get, a lot of people I don't know, this sounds bad maybe, but I have offers for podcasts, but I don't go on them because I don't necessarily like their message all the time, you know? And I love what you do and I love your message and I want to really align myself with people who are on the same path as me. And like you said, I feel like we're the same person. So I appreciate you for having me on and I'm excited to maybe be on in the future. If I get my podcast back up and running, I'll have you on as a guest for sure.
I was just about to say you need to start up your podcast again. You're a phenomenal speaker. You are just so fluid with your words. You're very clear. So I don't know why you don't have one of your own. So after this, you better start one.
Deal. I will do it just for you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We appreciate you more than you know, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.